between Johnson's kickoff return, J.J. Nelson's muff punt.
Yeah.
So it seems like he's the right guy, and he's getting just the right amount of touches right now.
Speaking of guys like DJ, what are some other game changers you saw yesterday?
Well, just the diversity, I would say, of the Cardinals offense. Just the fact that, there's no way to really game plan against David Johnson yet because he is so young, and just the efficiency of Carson Palmer. Yeah. All right, 4 more touchdown passes, and then you have to say Larry Fitzgerald going back to the Midwest, right? I know Larry's got family in the Chicago area, so I know he wanted to put on a great show, and he did. And you could tell when he got the ball, he wanted to score. He wanted to take advantage of the touches, of the opportunities. It's been 9 games since he had scored a touchdown, and then he had 3 yesterday. So that's just huge. And I think Larry's going to have more opportunities throughout the year because of John Brown. All right, and the attention that they have to give him, and now the threats coming out of the running back or out of the backfield with the speed that the Cardinals possess. It's going to open some things up for Larry in that slot, and he took advantage of it yesterday.
Remember, guys, we want to hear from you. We got the phone number 602-685-3017. Again, 602-685-3017. We want to hear your take on the Cards. Now, say you guys are Bruce Arians. Who do you give the game ball to? I mean, there's probably a list of 5 guys you could probably give it to this week.
David Johnson. Who's an unsung hero on offense this Sunday is Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson, you look at 20 carries, 72 yards, that's pretty average thing. But you know what? Holding down the fort like that without Andre Ellington, they needed a respectable running game, and they got that. He averaged 3.6 yards a rush, which isn't great, but it was better than their 3.3 yards a rush last year. Plus, they averaged 4.5 yards a carry overall as a team with Kerwin Williams and David Johnson as well. So that's huge. And the Cardinals, they win when they get over 100 yards rushing under Bruce Arians.
Right. I am going to have to go with Tony Jefferson, guys. Not only the pick 6, 9 tackles on the day. Led the team tackles, and he got himself a pick 6 for his son, his birthday.
That's very cool.
Isn't that awesome?
I mean,
you got to give him the game.
Calling it a shot. Here's who I'm giving the game ball to if I'm Bruce Arians. I'm taking that game ball, I'm walking into the Chicago Bears owner's box, and I'm gift wrapping that thing, and I'm handing it to Mike McCaskey. And saying, thank you very much, sir, for not hiring me and making a colossal error 2.5 years ago. The fact that you are clueless has benefited the Cardinals in so many ways. Thank you. Here's this game ball. Enjoy it, sir. Now let me get back into the winning locker room and continue this celebration.
Sure.
You have to talk about that as far as yesterday. The fact that they had him waiting in a hotel room. They could have had him as their coach. They choose not to.
There is no
deal with
doubt.
it.
There is a revenge factor involved yesterday at Soldier Field. Bruce Arians coming through big time. Around James Betcher, defensive coordinator. I mean, that defense really stood up when they needed to. Those 2 turnovers by the Cards offense held them to field goals. I mean, that's just clutch.
Well, what I also noticed is you saw against the Saints, the Cardinals got burned on those screen passes to running backs with Mark Ingram and Kyrie Robinson. They did such a great job of clamping down on Matt Forte, who was like the best receiving running back in the NFL. Calais Campbell made a great play on him. Dale Buchanan made a great play in the first half. They limited Matt Forte to less than 50 yards receiving. Anytime you do that with Forte, you're doing something right. So that's, you talk about the turnovers and those big plays. And it's interesting the Cardinals kept blitzing so late in the game. They're up 25 points the last couple minutes of the game. You talk about maybe a revenge factor.
Yeah.
Jimmy Clausen, backup quarterback in there for the injured Jay Cutler. The Cardinals keep blitzing on 3rd and 4th down when the game's decided. There was maybe a little talk about, was it necessary or not?
Right.
And it makes you wonder, were the Cardinals, were they trying to, try to make a statement there? Were they trying to make up for Carson Palmer, arguably a low hit on him about midway through the game? So it's just one of those things you got to wonder about.
Man, I hope it's yes to all of those things. I hope, A, they were trying to run up the score. Why not? Do it while you can. You had nothing to lose. Number 2, you always blitz Jimmy Clausen. You talk about deer in the headlights.
No,
I mean, that guy's not ready for the NFL, never has been. Bring the pressure on him. And we talked about this as a theme last week, and I hope we talk about it every single week. The fact that the Cardinals defense is holding the opposing offense to field goals instead of touchdowns because the Cardinals score in bunches, and you can't catch up 3 points at a time. So it is very, very bend but don't break.
Right.
Let other teams drive up down the field, but when you can hold them to field goals like they did in critical parts of the game yesterday and in week 1, it's huge.
Exactly. Another note on my pick, Tony Jefferson. We're talking game changer. He knocked Jay Cutler out of the game. Completely changed the game. What did that do for the Cardinals when their starting quarterbacks walk in the locker room?
That's why I take the defensive performance with a bit of a grain of salt on Sunday. I don't want to throw a wet blanket on the win. Maybe a wet washcloth, maybe.
Yeah.
Just a little bit because
Jimmy Clausen.
Well, let's face it. They have to face, and Jay Cutler is not the best quarterback in the NFL by a wide margin, but he's a little better than Jimmy Clausen. And they didn't have to face Alshon Jeffrey on Sunday either. Patrick Peterson didn't have to go against him. Peterson had a great interception as well in the second half. But, I'm still not completely sold this as an elite group. They've done a great job, especially at the end of the first half when they were pinned deep twice to hold the Bears to field goals. But I still think and I think Bruce Arians would probably agree there's room for improvement overall defensively.
Oh, without a doubt, I agree with you. And you don't want to get drunk on your own success right now because the fact that Cutler was out of that game made a huge difference. But that was a stupid play by Jay Cutler. What was the point? I mean, and the other thing, too, Bruce Arians said after the game yesterday, we're going to give up these runs. They're going to let Jay Cutler out of the pocket. Let him run. Let him get 4, 5, 6 yards, because if he continues to do that, he'll knock himself out of the game. I mean, Arians literally said that post-game yesterday, and it happened. That was terrible. You have not, and I'm surprised Jay Cutler did that. Wouldn't he seem to be the guy that would just take his helmet on, put a baseball cap on, and just go to the sideline, not even try to tackle the defender as he's running
that was his
by
way
him?
to assure that he was going to be on the sideline the rest of the game.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Once you mentioned, not getting drunk on your own success. 2-0, yes. But there's some national beat writers out there that predicted 2-0, and then what? 10-game losing streak.
Yeah, and I wrote about that in my blog today at abc15.com and on the app. So after the show, make sure you check this out, Cardinal fans. But if you need to keep a chip on your shoulder, Cardinals, just look at some of the preseason prognostications.
Yeah.
You didn't get a lot of respect before the season started, okay? And there's still going to be critics that aren't going to respect you yet based on who you've played so far, right? New Orleans is 0-2, and the Bears are 1-1. But hey, it'll get real.
Bears are 0-2 as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The Bears are 0-2. They lost to the Packers. I almost counted that as a half a win because they played the Packers tough,
close,
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to get real fast here. But all you can do is take care of business in the games that you have.
Right.
And the Cardinals are 2-0. And like we were talking about last night, Jason, are they the best team in the NFC West? I think all you can do is evaluate
NFC.
in the
Not just
NFC
yeah.
is evaluate how convincing they've been in their wins. And I think of all the undefeated teams, by far, they are the most convincing in their 2 victories so far.
Is there any team that's more motivated to finish what they started last year than the Cardinals, who started the season 9-1? And even when they were 9-1, there were doubts about whether they were the best team in the NFL then. A lot of these power rankings, which are, they're meaningless, but we all read them to see what people think. Didn't have them at number 1 in the NFL, even when they were 9-1. Number 2, number 3 behind the 6-4 Seahawks, and of course, those rankings were validated by the end of the year, obviously largely because of injuries. But still, I mean, I don't think the Cardinals need any incentive to stay motivated this year.
Right, and when you look at the other quote-unquote top teams in the NFC, Seattle, Cam Chancellor's still out. They've got a pretty shaky offensive line. Green Bay suffers from some injuries. Jordy Nelson's still out. Cowboys are dropping like flies. It's almost laughable. So right now, I'd say Cardinals top team in the NFC, which is crazy. Again, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. It is only 2 weeks into the season.
People are going to think I'm nuts. You too, especially
when
I say this. Yeah. But you know what? The Cowboys actually scare me more than the Seahawks, and I'll tell you why. I think the Seahawks are on the precipice of falling off the cliff.
Really?
Yeah, I really do. Because you can't duplicate what they've done the last few years. You can't flip a switch. And the fact that Chancellor isn't there, there's no end in sight to that holdout.
Chancellor comes back. Are you still more fearful of the Cowboys?
Ask me when he comes back, right? Because he's not back yet, and maybe he'll come back tomorrow or Wednesday, but I don't know. And I just think the breaks that team has had the first few years of this run, you can't duplicate. And when things go rough, I don't know if they have it in them to come back from 3 games behind the Cardinals. That's a big lead if the Cardinals can pump that up eventually to a 3-game lead or so over the only team that's a threat in the NFC West, which is Seattle. Forget about the Rams.
Here's the thing, though. 10 games into last season, the Cardinals had a 3-game lead on the Seahawks.
I know.
And then everything just came crashing.
And everything changes, of course, if your starting quarterback is hurt.
Yeah.
So Palmer's not
and your
playing.
second string and your third string.
Right. So all bets are off at that point. But I just don't think a team can duplicate that another time and come back from a 3-game deficit with, 5 or 6 left to go.
At the same time, though, I think we're underestimating just how big of a role Cam Chancellor is. Of course, Richard Sherman gets so much hype, but that guy is the heart and soul of the Seattle defense. Without him, they're subpar. Plain and simple.
Yeah, well, just seeing her on Twitter, guys. J.J. Nelson, rookie wide receiver for the Cardinals, apparently out 2 to 4 weeks with a shoulder injury, according to Bruce Arians just now.
So Bruce Arians just said at his press conference, that's, not good with the Andre injury.
They do have some wide receiver depth, obviously, we've seen. But obviously, you talk about the speed the Cardinals have. That's a big one right there, along with John Brown.
Here's how I feel about this. I did not expect him to make it through the entire season. I mean, he is frail. He's 160 pounds.
Yeah.
You know, he played college ball at the University of Alabama, Birmingham.
Yeah.
There's no way
it's what
you could think that he's going to make it through 16 games.
What Bruce Arians said, his advice to J.J. Nelson about waking up, he just said, just stay fast.
Stay
fast.
fast.
Don't get touched and you're fine.
Run away from contact.
And that's why I don't even know if I want him returning punts. You know, and I like Johnson because he's 230 pounds returning kickoffs and explosively fast. I mean, he can bounce off tacklers, shed arm tackles, and do what he did yesterday, take it to the house. So they're deep at wide receiver. They're not going to miss J.J. Nelson.
Guys, lines open. We want to hear from you. Your take on the Cardinals' big win over the Bears at Soldier Field. 602-685-3017. 602-685-3017. Call in. We want to hear from you. Guys, here's some pretty, after week 2, so some of these are insane looking at the 0-2 teams 2 weeks into the season. Baltimore, New York Giants, Philadelphia, New Orleans, Seattle. Are you kidding me?
I know.
The first ones. Then Detroit, Chicago, Houston. If the Jets win tonight on Monday Night Football, they're 2-0 and the Colts are 0-2.
Right.
What is happening in this world?
Well, the first team you mentioned, Baltimore, I'm glad they're 0-2. That's a team on the Cardinals schedule.
Yeah.
You know, it's early for a lot of teams to fix things, but I think also after 8 quarters of play, you can get an idea what some of these teams are all about. And Philadelphia, for instance, I watched them yesterday. They're terrible.
Terrible.
I mean, they are not going to turn it around.
Bad.
And anybody that thinks Sam Bradford is your quarterback that's going to lead you to the playoffs is flat out delusional. I'm sorry, Eagles, but my God, he's lost.
Yeah.
You know, and when things don't go well, because man, you listen to all that hype about what a genius Chip Kelly is, you expect to go up and down the field like a video game, and it's not happening for the Eagles. And I think they're shell shocked.
I had a coworker approach me before the season, and he'll remain nameless. He said, I was actually able to snag Sam Bradford as my fantasy quarterback. I'm like, you're excited about that? You excited about that?
Right. I mean, that's the right comment to have, I think.
Well, Bradford had a pretty good week 1 in terms of fantasy points, and everyone looks at it through the lens of fantasy points these days.
I wouldn't count on that.
Yeah, I will say Seattle though. I mean, we're 2 weeks into the year. Both their games have been on the road against. I mean, the Rams in overtime. The Packers are a tough team, so. It's still hard for me. I know, Tom, we disagree on this. It's still hard for me to believe the Seahawks won't get it together. I think there's just too much talent. Cam Chancellor, not. I think there's just too much talent in Seattle. They haven't played at home yet. Let's see how they do at home.
I completely
and you know what?
agree.
I'm not saying that they are going to fall apart. I'm going to say the chances of it happening this year are way better than the last couple of years because they've got their ring. They've been in the Super Bowl, all right? They've been there before.
And along those lines as well, you look at the teams that lose the Super Bowl, what they do next year. There's a really tough history about them losing or not making the playoffs the following year. The Cardinals were an exception after they went to the Super Bowl, but a lot of teams you actually do see, to Tom's point, you see them falling off quite a bit after they lose the Super Bowl. It's kind of like maybe a demotivator for them.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Let's talk about back to that QB battle, which was kind of a multi-QB effort, of course, from Chicago. Palmer finishes 17 for 24, 184 yards. 4 touchdowns is the real key. 1 interception compared to the Cutler-Clausen combo, 22 for 32, 226 yards, 1 touchdown, and of course, 2 big picks.
I call him Clotler.
Clotler.
Yeah.
Clotler.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, guys, it just goes to show how huge Carson Palmer's presence is, of course, when he's healthy. 15-2 in his last 17 starts? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I think a lot of weird things are going to happen this year. I mean, we've seen it twice now in 2 games. Some historic results. You know, the Cardinals are leading the NFL right now with 11 touchdowns. They're lead. What do they have? 78 points. They're leading whatever they have.
Yeah,
79. I love how the fact that they scored on offense, defense, and special teams.
All the first half.
Yeah, so many different players have scored touchdowns already. Plus, they have one of the leading touchdown scorers in the league in Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
So
That was
clicking on all cylinders so far.
Yeah.
And Fitzgerald, that was his first ever regular season 3-touchdown game. He had one in the NFC Championship game against the Eagles, but that tells you the old guy still got it. And then as far as the offensive Carson, let's talk about the offensive line for a minute.
Yes.
Okay.